What is going on, everyone? Summer 2020 is finally here, and there are no summer movies coming out this year. Yeah, it really sucks. Typically, this is the time of the year where movie franchises thrive. Some sequels end up being pretty good, though, others not so much. That's just how movie franchises work. Not every franchise is perfect. In this video, though, I will be going over my top 10 favorite movie franchises of all time. And yes, keep in mind that some of these franchises aren't perfect through and through, but they are my favorite nonetheless. And of course, I will be going over my honorable mentions. These are movie franchises that I feel are great, but just not good enough to be on my top 10 list. But first, before I do that, I have to say that I cannot put movie franchises on here that don't have more than 2 movies. If that was the case and these movie franchises had more than 2 movies that were good, I would most likely put the It franchise on here and the National Treasure franchise. I grew up loving those movies. To this day, I still watch them on repeat. I know a lot of you guys don't like the franchise of National Treasure, but for me, it's one of my childhood classics and I will forever love the franchise. But for It and National Treasure, I cannot put either one on this list because they don't have more than 2 movies. Alright, and now let me officially begin with my honorable mentions. We start with the Planet of the Apes franchise. I think Dawn is by far the best of the 3 movies, though. The John Wick franchise, 1 and 2, I think are better than 3 for sure. The Vacation franchise, I only like the first Vacation, Christmas Vacation, and Vegas Vacation. The new Star Trek movie franchise, I really love Into Darkness and Beyond. Both of those are sensational movies in my opinion. And the 20th Century Fox X-Men franchise. I am so sad to this day that Disney bought out 20th Century Fox because there were some really great movies that 20th Century Fox made in the X-Men franchise. I thought X2 was excellent. And then when looking at the new X-Men movies, I thought First Class, Days of Future Past, and Apocalypse were all great films. So I'm super disappointed that Disney now owns 20th Century Fox. No wonder why Dark Phoenix was such an awful movie. Oh, and I can't forget to mention Logan, another really good X-Men film. Now with my honorable mentions out of the way, we can officially begin this list with number 10. The first film franchise on my list is the Lord of the Rings franchise. This, in my opinion, is the greatest fantasy franchise of all time. That strictly goes for movie franchises that have fantasy-only worlds, and it's not even close. The Lord of the Rings franchise is just so good and epic. It's about as epic as a movie franchise could ever get. We start from a very small place where the hobbits all live, and then we finally leave the Shire and go all the way into Return of the King, where it's all out war, and it's just so incredibly filmed. It is all out epic. I've never seen a franchise go as epic as this in terms of scale. Lord of the Rings is a perfect film franchise, and I even love the Hobbit trilogy. Not many people like it as much as I do, but I still feel like those movies are good. But of course, this is mostly about the Lord of the Rings films, and all 3, in my opinion, are just so amazing. Number 9. At 9, it's the MCU, or otherwise known as the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I feel like the MCU is extremely overrated. A lot of people consider this to be the best movie franchise of all time. And yes, there are some things that the MCU has done that we never thought we would see on the screen. I never imagined in my life when I was 10 years old that we would see a movie where SpiderMan meets up with so many other great superheroes like Iron Man, Thor, the Hulk. It's incredible what they've been able to do with this franchise, but at the same time, it's not like every movie in this franchise is perfect. There are so many movies in the MCU that feel redundant. Like, what does Black Panther do differently than movies like Iron Man or Thor? They all feel pretty similar, at least for the superhero origin movies. None of them are that good in my opinion, but there are some great MCU movies, that's for sure. That's why it's number 9 on my list. I'm talking about movies like Avengers Infinity War, Captain America the Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. All of those movies are great, but at the same time, there still are movies that do feel redundant. Had they made those origin story movies for those heroes a little bit more unique, I probably would have put this franchise higher on my list. Number 8. Obviously, the Dark Knight trilogy has to be somewhere on my list, and like Lord of the Rings, it's pretty much perfect. I think my favorite out of the franchise is The Dark Knight, like a lot of other people, but Batman Begins is a close second. The Dark Knight Rises I do have some issues with, but I still think it's the most epic out of the three. It does do some things better than the first two movies, but it's still not my favorite of the trilogy. However, Christopher Nolan, he did such a fantastic job at directing this Dark Knight trilogy. It is so gritty, super epic. It does everything that the Batman franchise has never done before, and that's give us a really dark look at the character of Bruce Wayne and Batman.
Number 7.
Pirates of the Caribbean. This is a franchise that is so much fun, and the casting choices are on point. Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow is so funny in all the movies. I love him as that character. You cannot have a Pirates of the Caribbean movie without Jack Sparrow and Johnny Depp as him. Of course, this is not a perfect movie franchise. The last two movies weren't as good, but the first three, especially the first, are great. To this day, it's still a mystery as to why people do not like Dead Man's Chest and At World's End. Both movies are good. I don't have many problems with them. Of course, the first film in this franchise is the best, but that's not to say the rest of the movies aren't good. This film franchise as a whole, I feel like, has gone in some very fun directions, and I would love to see them continue this adventure with a sixth film in the franchise.
Number 6.
The James Bond movie franchise. There's just something about watching James Bond movies that makes me so happy on the inside. Plus, it doesn't hurt that the action is just sensational, especially in the newest James Bond movies with Daniel Craig. Casino Royale and Skyfall are two of my favorite action movies of all time, but not just that, two of my favorite films of all time. These two movies are just so good from every single standpoint, and I cannot wait to watch No Time to Die. Not sure if it's going to be as good as those two, but it still has a shot. Considering it is Daniel Craig's last movie as James Bond, I am sure they will go all out. But looking at this franchise as a whole, I really enjoy the original films. I enjoy the films that came out not so long ago, and I enjoy the newer James Bond movies. All of them, for the most part, are watchable. They're all enjoyable. We have the 25th James Bond movie coming up pretty soon, which is incredible to say. So I love the James Bond movies, and this franchise has been really fun to watch.
Number 5.
The Indiana Jones franchise, one of the best action-adventure movie franchises ever made. This franchise includes some of the best set pieces ever put together on the screen. Harrison Ford, that guy has killed it over all of these years. It's so annoying, though, that they keep delaying the 5th Indiana Jones movie. Like, when will that movie ever come out? Come on, they've been delaying that thing for years. Just make it already. I cannot wait to watch it when it does officially come out, though. Out of all the movies, Raiders of the Lost Ark is the best, but Temple of Doom is not far behind. That movie is underrated the way I look at it. Last Crusade, I would say, is my least favorite of the original trilogy, but it's still a fun time. I'm a guy that's really into adventure franchises as well as action franchises, and Indiana Jones is both of those things. And when you have Harrison Ford as your lead, well, that gives you so much room for success, and Indiana Jones succeeds on pretty much every level.
Number 4.
Placing fourth on my list is the Toy Story franchise. Listen, the original 3 Toy Story movies are 3 of the greatest movies ever made. Not just animated movies ever made, but movies ever made. All 3 are just so good. Toy Story 4, to this day, I'm like, didn't really have to be made. It's quite unnecessary. But the first 3 Toy Story movies, it doesn't get much better than this in terms of film franchises and movie trilogies. The Toy Story franchise is the king of animation. It's Pixar's favorite child. When watching the first movie from the beginning and the third movie at the end, there is not a single shot that feels unnecessary. And all 3 films are put together so well. That's just how good this franchise is.
Number 3.
The Sam Raimi SpiderMan franchise is number 3 for me. I could easily put this at number 2 or even number 1, but there are not enough good Spider-Man Sam Raimi movies or even enough movies in general for me to make that a necessary move. But if you watched my review of the first Spider-Man film from a couple of weeks ago, you know that I love that film. In my opinion, it is perfect, and Spider-Man 2 is also perfect. Spider-Man 3, heck, I'd rather watch Spider-Man 3 than, get this, Spider-Man Homecoming and probably Spider-Man Far From Home, maybe even Into the Spider-Verse. I have just grown to enjoy that film over time. I even liked it as a kid. There was not a single movie franchise I believe I have watched as much as the Sam Raimi Spider-Man franchise ever since I was a kid. I have seen this thing probably 50 plus times, and I could continuously watch it because the rewatchability factor is that high for myself.
Number 2.
The Harry Potter franchise is second for me. The world building here is on point. The world feels so real despite being fantasy. The characters, the casting choices are all pitch perfect. Daniel Radcliffe as Harry Potter, my God, the guy is just so great from when he was a kid all the way to when he was a young adult. And the rest of the cast, I'm like, how? How do you find these perfect casting choices? Every single character in the Harry Potter franchise feels so perfectly casted, and there is not a single character that does not feel well casted. And not only is the casting great, but I love the story of Harry Potter. I love this universe, this world. But what's really crazy is how there is not a single bad movie out of the 8 Harry Potter films. At least not until we got to Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them in those movies. I would have been perfectly fine had we just stuck with the original 8 and never made any other films.
Number 1.
I apologize in advance, but obviously my favorite movie franchise of all time, number 1, is Star Wars. Yeah, I'm sorry. I had to do it. It's just, I can't help for liking a franchise as much as I do. And no, I don't like the new movies at all. At least not the new trilogy, and you know that if you watched my latest Star Wars video that I made a couple of weeks ago talking about how much I actually hate the new trilogy. But the original trilogy is a classic. It's one of the greatest trilogies of all time, if not the greatest movie trilogy. And then looking at the prequels, yeah, sure, episodes 1 and 2, not great, but episode 3, I love it. And you know what? I want to make this number 1 choice a little more unique because I'm sure most other movie fanatics would probably put Star Wars number 1 like myself. So I will make this a little bit more of a unique choice by telling you guys that over time I have realized that Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, is my favorite Star Wars movie. And most people would not say that. But for me, I love the movie, so there you go. Alright, and there you guys have it. That is my list for my top 10 favorite movie franchises of all time. If you guys also have your top 10 list for your favorite movie franchises, be sure to let me know down below in the comment section what that list is. Of course, I have many more classic reviews coming out for you guys in the midst of this coronavirus, so get ready for more reviews and a lot more special videos. I have a ton of things planned for this summer, so I cannot wait to reveal what all of those are. If you're new to my channel, click the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I hope you all have a fantastic day.